If you go to your AutoCAD project, week 6 blocks, you will see there are quite a few updates. There's more things in the plumbing section. We've added and foundation plan related section and a few things in the miscellaneous section, as well as 2 hatches that we're going to use and a few other notations that we're going to add. So the best way for you would be to not pick and choose whatever is added to the existing file of yours, but just select everything, Control C, and then go to your project file and Control V. You can remove the previous blocks that you have had and just put these on. Once you've done this, let's make sure we're going to create all the layers that we're going to need for the second floor plan and the foundation plan. Let's start with the second floor plan. Please make sure to create new layers with the exact naming convention as you can see on these photos. Do not worry about doing anything on this side, and make sure that the color selected for each layer is correct. There's no need to import, there's no need to create layers that are crossed out with the blue line. You might already have a second joist layer. There's no need to delete it if you already have, just keep it. And this file is uploaded on D2L so that you can have access to it, as well as the foundation level layers. As you can see, those are all the layers that you would need, except for those 2 that are crossed out. And keep in mind the color. Please assign the color to each layer. Once you have created all of the layers, they'll appear in your layer properties manager. The easiest way to create a layer would be to click on this new layer, and it will essentially give you an opportunity to name it and to change the color. And let's start creating a hatch for the interior and exterior walls. The way it's done in the best fashion is simply by hiding temporarily everything that's not related to that, so that anytime there is an interference, there is a line crossing through our interior and exterior walls, we're not going to have an issue. For instance, in this case, our dimension line is crossing through the walls, and in order for us not to have to repeat the hatch command again, let's just hide it temporarily by going to this light bulb column and hiding all the things that are not necessary in this case. Pretty much the only thing we need to have are the outlines of our walls, which in this case it is sufficient. Now you simply type H spacebar and you go in the cavity of where it's supposed to be. Here you can see whenever I went into the cavity, it gave me this problem. It outlined and hatched everything else around it. This is an easy problem to fix. The only reason why it's happening is because there is a small break or a gap between the outlines of our walls that might have been an error, or just might have been an issue with the way that we placed our windows and doors. So I'm going to escape and press Ctrl Z to return. And let's check all of our ends of walls. As you can see, even though it's a very tiny gap between our walls, still we have to make sure we close them. And the way we do this is type F, press on one line and on the second line, and this will connect them together. Just go around and look at any other opening, such as this. Again, this is an easy error to make, and we can easily fix it. Even if it extends slightly like here, let's just make it nice and clear. Primarily this happens on the exterior walls. I won't be too concerned about the interior walls for now, but if the same error with hatches will appear. We can do the same for the interior walls. So let's try hatches again. H. Still have the same issue. Let's try the interior walls as well. That's okay to go through this process several times. AutoCAD is not ideal when it comes to such things, so we have to double check and triple check almost everything. All right, it seems like I went through the entire portion of this side. Let's try this again. H. There you go. Now I've closed all the corners, and now only my interior wall cavity, essentially between this line and this line, is done with a hatch. Now this is not the hatch that we need to do, and the way you want to fix this is you can either manually click on it and select the one we need, which the one we need is already imported into your project, and it's this one. The actual name is ANSI37. But the way I like doing this is I type MA, I press spacebar, select on the hatch the source of matching properties that I want to copy, and I go to the ones that I want that to change it to. There you go. Similar process for this portion. Once you fixed all the corners and you got all the hatches and all of the wall cavities, try to omit the wall openings because we're not going to put a hedge between them since this is something that we see above. Above hatches we're not showing in this case. So once you've done this and your drawing looks pretty much like mine, let's go back and put all of our layers back on. This way that we're indicating our interior and exterior walls and they're absolutely clear. They're not going to be mistaken for any types of lines. With this in mind, we're going to go ahead and copy and create a new sheet. You can right click on an A3 sheet and press move or copy. You're going to have a window pop up and you want to click here, create a copy, and click and select A3 sheet. This is going to create essentially the same sheet with the same layout, with everything else the same. And let's go ahead and rename it into the A4. Let's try to abbreviate second floor plan, and let's remove this sign right here. There you go. Now we have a new sheet. Let's go back to our hatches and make sure it's assigned to the right layer. In this case, you can see the layer it is assigned to was the foundation hatch, which is incorrect. We want to assign it to the first hatch, because once we're going to go to the foundation plan, we do not want to have two hatches at the same time. So go around the hatches you've created and change them to the first floor hatch. Now we are going to start creating the second floor plan. The way that we're going to start doing this is, let's first and foremost close all the things that we don't need on this layer right now. For instance, let's close everything related to the foundation plan, even though we don't have anything there right now. Anything related to the, well, the second floor plan layers we're going to keep. But let's for now remove or hide first cabinetry, first dimensions, first doors and windows, first hatches, joists, nodes, fans, hidden, plumbing, structural, and just keep the walls. Now, let's highlight all of the walls that we have, just pretty much except for the interior walls. So in this case, I have some walls that work as polylines. And in this case, since we already finished with our first floor plan, what I can do is I can change polylines to regular lines by typing EX, that's EXP, that stands for explode. Make sure you select the explode option. And this way I can select individual lines, and I don't, whenever I select on one of them, it doesn't highlight all the lines that I do not need. In this case, I do not need the interior walls, I only need the exterior walls. So I press EXP and select explode. Now I can easily select all the lines that I truly need. You just go around the exterior the exterior walls. It's okay if one or two of the walls, the wall lines that you select are not going to copy exactly. That's fine. We're going to adjust this later on. As well as I want to make sure I copy the staircase walls, such as these, and the chase walls, because chase is going to be continuous from the second floor to the first floor. So all the walls associated with this. You can see this wall extends further than I need. That's fine. We can always trim it. Now, and I want to copy this wall, or at least a portion of this. There you go. Some of the lines, again, we're going to trim. Now let's copy it to the side for now. Copy, command, make sure it stays on the same horizontal line. The way you ensure this is you can probably see a green dashed line to the left. So copy it here, select it again, and let's assign these walls to the second walls layer. And let's move them from this side all the way to this side in the exact same spot. Now we're not going to see anything different here. However, if we go to the first floor plan, and obviously everything that we saw in the model space we're going to see here, because the only thing that we're doing is that we're turning on and off all the layers here. But the way it's supposed to be done in reality is that we want to make sure all the layers are on, the ones that we're actually working with here, and the ones we don't need are off under the V column. And the way we do this is, for instance, you are in this viewport, or you can select it this way. Make sure that you have none of these selected over here. You select the viewport and you start turning off go inside of the viewport, and you start pressing this portion until you see something like a bluish ice cube on this layer. Essentially what it does, it freezes this layer and it doesn't allow that layer to appear on this sheet or in this viewport. For instance, if I do not want my interior and exterior doors to appear on this sheet for whatever reason, but I still want them to be visible in the model space, I go to the first doors and windows, press on this, and now they disappear from my viewport. But if I go to the model space, they're still here. That's how you control the layers on a specific viewport. So I actually do want to see my first doors and windows, so I'll keep them on. But everything not related to the first floor, I keep it off. Again, only the first first floor elements I want to keep. There we go. Now there's nothing that's not supposed to be here. When it comes to the second floor plan, again, we already have the exact scale that we need, the exact location of the floor plan that we need. The only thing that we are missing is showing the right types of layers. So go ahead and select all of the not second floor layers and make sure that they're frozen. But the way you do this is go into the viewport itself. Make sure that it is active. Double click on it. And now, there you go. Now, this is the outline of our second floor plan. Once you finish creating all the interior walls based on the PDF image that is uploaded on D2L, one will be in a color version, one will be in a black and white version. And they're going to look like this. This is going to be the black and white version. As you can see, there's everything you need. Everything has dimensions of all the interior walls and exterior walls. And you will also get this PDF of all the things you would need. Please make sure that your colors correspond to the colors that are shown in this PDF. If for some reason your colors are different, it may be because your item or your lines are assigned to a different layer, or your layer has a different color assigned to that layer. Please complete this first, and then after you complete the project to this level, you can go ahead and complete the project according to the second PDF that includes shelves, washer dryer, vanities, essentially all the plumbing and cabinetry items, shower, toilet, just a few more items that you would need to insert. I did not want to put them on the first PDF because it would make it look a bit crowded and not as easy for you to see. Let me quickly go over a few things that might be essential when you will be creating this layout. Start with the exterior walls. Make sure that all of them have empty spaces over here and they're not intersecting one another in this fashion. This is not a good connection. This should look like this. Make sure that all the windows are placed in the right location. All the windows in this case will be of the same size, even though in real life they're not. But for the sake of simplicity, they will be for this project. Make sure you orient the text in the left or towards the left for easier reading. The risers essentially are a copy of the first floor plan rises. So the way you can copy the risers from the second floor is go to the first floor plan viewport, select all the risers that are indicating that they're going up, copy them, and you would need to copy them to the side and make sure they're aligned to the same. In my case, it was turned off, but make sure you have a green light, a green dashed line that shows you that those lines are aligned with the same position. Once you copy them, and make sure you remember the distance in which you're copying them in either direction. Let's say in this case, I want to copy them to the right side by 9 feet. I type in 9 feet. There you go. Now I copied these stair rises 9 feet away from the existing ones. I select them and I manually change the layer to the second walls layer, because my goal is to try to copy them and move them to another layer so that they can appear on our A4 second floor plan viewport. So I copied these exact risers and move them 9 feet, and I'm changing the layer of all of them to second walls. That's the only thing that I'm changing. Now, if I go here, those risers are already in place, and I move them 9 feet, and they should stack up exactly where I have had them shown before. Those that are overlapping with your interior walls, you can remove those because those we cannot see. And this is the final look. Regarding these lines, these risers, they are a copy of these ones. So you can actually do the same thing, select them, copy them, in a place where you can easily get them. For instance, I would copy them somewhere here, and you can see 27 feet up, copy them, I select all of them, change the layer to the second walls, go to the A4 sheet, they're here, and I move them down exactly the same distance, 27 feet. And they line up perfectly with the ones that I have had before. So this is how you go about doing this. When it comes to the chase, you will see there are circles that in this case will indicate the maximum diameter of a duct that can go through this chase. How you create this, you can select the same line as you have from the first floor plan. You can copy these lines in the same fashion as you have the stairs, copying them at a certain distance away, 2 feet, reassign the layer to the second floor, second walls layer, and once you have, just move them down 2 feet. I have already done this. Now, using, in this case, a second note layer and line type hidden 2, you create a circle. A circle that needs to be 7 inches in radius. And the way you go about doing this is you look here, there's a circle and it says radius. You click somewhere, then you indicate the radius of the circle, which we said is 7 inches. Make sure it is on the layer second note, and the color is yellow, and the line type is hidden 2. And once you've done this, just position it somewhere in between the interior walls of the chase and copy it to the right side. So you have 2 of them in that area. That will indicate to the mechanical contractors that the chase of this size can go here. We're not going to put a dimension in this case, but they would know what this means. Likewise, please make sure that you copy all of the names with the flooring in them, all of the sizes of doors. They're not too different from the ones we've done before. The door into the laundry is 3 foot, 6 feet, 8 inches. And all the interior dimensions. There might be some overlaps, like in this case, you might see this probably moved from this area for some reason, but there might be some overlaps like here where the name of the room overlaps a little bit with an extension line of a dimension, and that's totally fine. Again, we're not going to be extremely picky about the overlaps, but we will want to try to keep them to the minimal. Another thing that is different on the second floor, and the only thing you will see here for now, is the W and D. And if I turn on the second plumbing layer, this will indicate a washer and a dryer. But for now, for what we're doing, you can just put a W and a D here, and you can see there is a wall right here that is 7 inches thick. Essentially, what this wall would be is a 3.5 inch wall and a 3.5 inch wall right next to each other. So this is going to be a cavity of 7 inches. And if we turn on our second plumbing layer, you're going to see we will put a dryer and a washer in this area. Wherever you put washer and a dryer, because of the size of the piping that they require, and in that cavity, it's ideal to have a thicker wall. So that's the reason why this wall is going to be 7 inches. Another thing to note on this plan is that we're still dimensioning the exterior portions of the building. For instance, since this portion of the building is going to be a rectangle, and when you copied the first floor plan initially, you probably have noticed that we have this extension in our garage that goes beyond where our front door is. However, what we want to do is we want to trim it so that that extension will only be on the first floor. So our second floor essentially is going to start and go up to this point. Everything beyond this point would be staying only on the first floor. So whenever you copied your walls, you'll have to trim them and change them, still remain this line at 20 feet 8 inches from this edge. And this is the line type that you're going to make these 3 lines in. The second walls, you will manually change the color to yellow, and then you will manually change the line type to hidden. This line, and this line. When you dimension to this portion, this corner of the wall, make sure you pull your dimension from this position over here so that you are not going to cross into the dashed area. This dashed area again represents the lower portion of the garage. Now that you have completed this drawing to this extent, I'm going to turn on the second cabinet, the second nodes, fence, and SD, and the second plumbing layers. You have a PDF that outlines these blocks and their locations as well as the shelves. This block essentially is in your blocks area. You put it here, but you first create an offset of 12 inches from the exterior wall to represent a seat for the shower. So as a walk-in shower, sometimes they have seats. This is going to be a 12-inch seat in that shower. Make sure that all of your plumbing is on the plumbing layer. Over here above the toilet, we're going to have a different block. On the first floor, we had a continuous running fan. On this floor, we're going to have an FL, which stands for fan and light. And it's going to turn on with a switch. There are 2 vanities. 30 indicates the width of the vanities from here to here, 2'6", 24 plus 6, 30 inches. 2 of them right next to each other. And this 30 number can be anywhere where it doesn't block the rest of the drawing. SDs for smoke detectors that will be placed in every bedroom right inside of it next to the door, here, 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 and here, and one at the stairs going down right here. Overall 5. Washer and dryer, again, try to position those against the wall, but still leave some gap on the left side and on the right side. Put them next to each other. In this bathroom, everything is the same. 30-inch vanity, toilet, and a tub. Make sure that your vanities are on the second cabinet layer, and your toilet and your tub is on the second plumbing layer. When it comes to the shelving, everything is offset by 1 foot. 1 foot away from the wall, and you draw a thick, solid line on the second cabinets layer, bi-layer color, bi-layer line type, and you go around here and here, and then you offset this line by typing O. And you can specify the distance, 2 inches. You have set this line in this direction, and essentially this dashed line is going to be 10 inches away from the wall, and it will be under line type hidden. Same layer type, same color, but the line type will be hidden. This will represent a rod, like you would probably have in your closet. or might have had. Similar to here, 1 foot away for the solid line, 2 inches down for the dashed line. Here, there's no specific distance between the door and the shelving, but I would keep it somewhere around 4 inches would be solid enough distance, because we have to take into account the casing for the door, which would be anywhere from 1.5 to 4 inches. So we do this in the same way, 1 foot away for the solid line, 2 inches to the left for the dashed. Same for this portion. Linen closets are not going to include in themselves a rod. That's why we're not showing a dashed line, but we're still offsetting the solid line by 1 foot, and it is under second cabinets layer. Same for this linen, 1 foot away, second cabinets layer. And at this point, we're going to only finish creating a hatch the same way we've done it for the first floor. Type H and start inputting the hatch in the cavities. If you have any locations where you need to close the corners together in case your hatch does not come out right, do this. But the best way to do the hatching would be to try to close as many layers as possible at this stage, because they're only going to be in the way of you creating hatches. Even doors and windows and dimensions. Since I was trying to turn off a layer that was active, it asked me, do I want to still turn it off or not? I want to still turn it off. And now you can see almost only bare walls in this area. There are some def points lines which I can eliminate since they're not going to be printed anyways. They get imported from a block of a shower with a seat, but we don't care about them right now. H for hatch. Try to put it in the cavity, and if you don't see it, then most likely the cavity is incomplete, or you might be putting it on the wrong layer. Like in my case, the layer I'm working is second dim, which is incorrect. So I'm going to turn on that layer, and you can see that my hatch went outside of the cavity. But I'm going to fix it by, again, making sure that all the corners are tight by pressing F for fillet, spacebar, select 2 corners, press spacebar again to repeat the same command. Now, having checked all the corners, I'm going to attempt hatching again. I type in H for hatch, spacebar. I want to make sure the entire floor plan is visible on my screen, and I try to go inside of the cavity somewhere at the top. Once I do this, you can see there's a small portion of the hatch that seems like it's not aligning too well. Well, I do not want this to happen, so I press escape and Control Z to go backwards, or you can just press on it and delete it. In order to avoid something of that nature, where a portion of the interior side is hatched, and I made sure that all the corners here are not going to have any gaps. The way you can mitigate this issue is staying in the same layer, second hatch, type in L for line, and try to isolate the portion potentially where that hatch is having an issue. So I drew 2 lines essentially blocking an opportunity for a hatch to go this way as well as this way. So let's try this again. H for hatch. Go inside of the cavity. There you go. Now the area that I blocked off was actually the area that apparently was problematic, and that occasionally can happen with AutoCAD and hatches. So now I still want to have this area hatched, but I have these 2 lines blocking this hatch. If I remove these lines, this hatch is going to create the same issue it did before. So I'll try to create another hatch, H press here, but now it creates essentially a hatch within the entire space. Let's try to fix it a different way. Press escape and try to press M for move. And let's move it about, I don't know, 2 inches. Once select on it again, you will see there are different ways you can manipulate this hatch. There are rectangles, there are squares. Essentially, the corners or the squares are the ones that you can pull, and your hatch is going to adjust how it looks like. However, if you pull a rectangle, it's going to adjust it only within that direction. So a rectangle is going to maintain the line versus a square is going to essentially create a corner. Since you already have the corners you need, let's try to stretch them back to where we've started. And now let's try to create, let's put this corner, in case you have the same issue. If you don't have the same issue, you're good to go. But if you have it somewhere else, this is how I would recommend you to deal with it. You move the square into another corner and you leave this gap this way. However, once you've done this, I want you to just hover over the square until you see this pop-up window, and you press on add vertex and you pull it down. In this case, it created it from this side, which is the side that I can move over here. And then wherever you move it, essentially you're blocking out an area that you do not want it to touch. Let me try to put another vertex in the middle, and I put it down right here. Now, as you could probably see, I isolated the area of the hatch only to the ones, only to the walls, and I can manipulate it as far and as wide as I can. And you can keep these two lines as needed. So now that you have created the hatch, let's turn all the layers back on. And this is essentially the final look of your second floor plan. Congratulations. Now let's set up our view for the foundation plan. Let's right click on the A3 first floor plan, move or copy, keep this selected and create a copy. Again, keep it selected. Okay. So essentially we copied this first floor plan yet again. Now let's change it to, say, foundation plan A2. Now on this specific viewport, let's double click on it and let's click on everything. Let's select all of these layers, press on the first cap, press shift, second walls, and make sure that all of them have this ice or blue icon in the V column. Then select all of the foundation layers and make sure it doesn't do that. What it does, essentially, we're isolating this viewport to only see these layers, not the other ones, but yet they're still present in the model space. Now let's go back to the A3 first floor plan and let's get some things from here. For example, let's get the outside portion of all the exterior walls. As you can see, I go around and I'm trying to get all the outside portions of the exterior wall. Not the interior portions, not this line, not this line, but the outside portions only. There's no need for hatches just yet. We select all of these lines, just go around and click on them. Once you have let's not Control C, let's CO, copy, and right now move it to the left to a position where it would be away from your current floor plan. If I move it away from the viewport, I'll stop having control over it. but I know that it shouldn't be more than 60 feet. Let's move it towards the left, 60 feet. It will disappear from my screen for a moment. You can only see a portion. Let's go to model space and it will appear here since all of the work we're doing in the viewports appear in the model space. Select all of these lines, change them to the 0 foundation walls. And their color is going to change. Essentially, we assigned it to a different layer. Now let's move them the same distance. Press M and move them to the right 60 feet. Go to your foundation plan and then here you go. This is the outline of our exterior portion of the building. Now let's do some quick trims. I do not want to have two lines that are in the same plane. I'll remove this line. I press F, spacebar, and connect these two exterior lines. Same goes for this portion. I remove one of the lines, press F, connect the other two. I remove this portion of the line, press F, and connect these two. The one thing you would need to keep in mind that our foundation wall will be made out of concrete and it will be 8 inches thick. Since this forms the outside edge of our foundation wall, we're going to have to offset these lines by 8 inches from all corners, just like I am doing right now. Now let's fix them by pressing F and just connecting the corners. If you press spacebar, your previous command, such as F in my case, will be repeated. So instead of pressing F all the time, I just press the spacebar. This forms the outline of our foundation walls. However, there are a few other walls that we need to take into account. For instance, our wall right here is also going to have a foundation. It is not required, but it would be beneficial for us to do it this way so that we can offset the structure and not have it go from one end to another. Once you get to this point, select the interior portion of this wall, of this concrete wall, and copy it 20 feet and 8 inches up. Then offset it another 8 inches in this direction. And fill the area between this portion and this portion. Press F, select this side of the wall and this side of the wall, as well as these two sides, and select these corners or all the lines that have these corners and type in TR for trim and simply remove the lines in between them. Same here, select this corner, TR, space, remove this line. This is going to cover the foundation portion, the concrete foundation wall portion of this floor plan. Then let's go to the first floor plan and select all the risers the same way we would before, as well as these lines that we've drawn before, but I said we're going to come back to them. Let's select them and let's select two lines on this side, two lines on this side, two lines on this side, and two lines on this side. Once you have selected all of these lines, or we can also probably select as well the handrails, it would not be in a way. Press CO for copy, move them to the side, somewhere where you can easily get to them. Let's say in this case would be 25 feet. Make sure that all of the lines that you have drawn in this portion our first walls, select all of these lines again. Make sure you select all of them and change the layer type to 0 foundation walls. Go back to the foundation plan, they're all here, and move it back exactly the same distance. Once you move these lines in the right place, you can see there is quite a few lines that overlap. Let's try to trim a few of them. The lines that we want to keep are, first of all, the foundation concrete walls, such as this line and this line, because they are 8 inches apart. So anything that's in between them, for instance, like this line and this line, we just want to remove because they're not needed for this portion. As well as this line right here, because it's not a part of our foundation wall. It just copied from the previous drawing. And since this line connects to this line, this portion as well. The only line that should remain in place is this line and this line. And they should be offset from the foundation wall by 1 inch. That should be fine. You can see our risers on this side. They are extending into the foundation wall, which will not happen since we are going to continue this line all the way down to a rough point right now, somewhere beyond. Now, the way for us to get to the foundation or to the basement would require for us to have fewer risers. So the bottom 2 risers we're actually going to remove completely. Select them, remove them, and this way we can move this line a bit closer to the end of the last riser. And make sure that you continue and make sure you draw the edge of this line in the right layer. Let's go to 0 foundation walls, L, and just draw a nice line that is 1 inch long. And the rest of the risers you can trim. You can either do it manually, selecting the line and going back 1.5 inches, or the way I prefer doing this is essentially press and trim several times because it removes the line before the next intersection of the line, and that saves me a bunch of time. Here we go. We've drawn this line. We are going to draw this line as well. And based on the PDF, you will see that this line will be 6 feet, 4.5 inches away from that wall, which is right here. So I drew one line, drew a line down, I'll fill it, and there we go. We have a portion of the wall that ties back into the concrete foundation wall. These handrails can remain in place, except for this one would need to be shortened. We want to copy the length, the position of this line over here, so that we can close off this portion of the foundation wall. And since this is a handrail, it obviously cannot extend so far out of the foundation, out of the wall. I'll select it, I'll press S for stretching, go to a corner and pull it up to a position that I feel comfortable with, such as probably somewhere here. If I need to extend the handrail, I'll go ahead and do this now. And we can continue these risers by essentially drawing a line by going to this portion. It will assume that this is the line that we want to continue it from. Draw a line and they will be aligned. Now let's match property, MA, of this line and this line, and select this line, CO for copy, and go down to each riser. Make sure whenever you go down, you see the dashed green line. And there we go. This is going to be our stairs going down. Let's also trim out this portion right here. Let's copy this corner in this direction so that it can serve as a ending point of the foundation wall. By going to the first floor plan, actually in this case, apologize, the second floor plan, we will select this chase and the duct circles. Press copy, move them to the right somewhere, maybe 4 feet. Select them again and assign them to a specific layer. Let's assign them to the same layer so to make things easier for ourselves. Foundation, let's put it under notes. Once we go down to the foundation plan, select them and move them 4 feet. As you have done this, try to create an outline for this portion from one edge of the diagonal line to the other. And for now, do it in any layer. However, select these lines or match MA, match property, so that they'll be in the same layer, the same color, the same line type, and make them also yellow. And they should be in the nodes, foundation nodes layer. Perfect. This is going to indicate for our mechanical contractors, this is the space where ductwork is supposed to go up into the first and the second floors. Now go into the second floor plan yet again. Let's copy this, offset it maybe somewhere here. 24 feet should be sufficient. Change this to the foundation nodes. Well, once we get it from here, let's move it in the same position, 24 feet, and there you go. Down means that this portion of the area is going to be higher than this portion. Since this is the entry into the basement, that is correct. This portion is going to remain like this because we're not going to be drawing anything from the first floor anymore. Next, let's place our window and the well according to the PDF. Go to the model space where your blocks are. Select the foundation, window, and well, and Control C for easier copying. Go to the viewport, Control V, and it will appear here since it's already been assigned to the correct layer. Now let's rotate it, RO, select anywhere, and try to make sure that the rotation is on the right at the correct angle, like this one. Since we're supposed to put it roughly 5 feet away from here, I drew one line, drew another one, essentially copied it, and this would be the edge of where I would put my window well, and I'll just slide it down so that it completely goes into the foundation wall. Now these lines are extra and they're not needed. Now we have placed our foundation well and in the right location. Now let's take a bit of time and try to dimension everything that we have so that we make sure that everything that we need is in the right location. Let's change our layer to the 0 foundation dimensions. DLI is what I use I like to press, dim linear, and let's dimension the exterior portions first. Since we're not going to have any breaks on this side, third line should suffice. In this case, first one would go from one edge to the other edge. This one should suffice. Here we have a break in a way that our walls are going. So I'm going to put this onto the 4th line and draw another dimension line here and another dimension line over here. On this side, we have the same situation. First, we dimension the overall highest length. Something went wrong here because I did not dimension it to the right location, and that's why you have this strange fraction. The way you can fix it is by simply dragging this to the corner. I have a 45-foot length. Dimension this portion and dimension this portion. Now let's dimension the rest of the walls on this plan. Let's start by going and indicating the thickness of this wall, knowing that we're going to go in the vertical direction, 8 inches, and press on this dimension and move this 8 inches out of the way. Let's say here it's fine. Now, still while I have this highlighted, press D, C, O for dimension continue, and this way you can continue with the same dimension and draw it multiple times. Now I want to select this line, this line, this line, and this line, and press escape. Now the same thing we're going to do here, move these away. Sometimes if you don't move them far enough, it will not create an extension line. But now I do want to have an extension line, that's why I want to move it a little bit further. Or I can keep it over here since it's clear that this dimension responds to these witness lines. Now that we highlighted where this wall is going and we made sure it aligns with our PDF, let's also highlight the LI where this window well goes. Let's start from this corner and end over here at the edge of the wall. Go to this location. I press spacebar because I like making things easy for myself. And our window will be 3'2", and one more spacebar, this corner and this corner. And now we have located our window and well. Let's also make sure that we locate our walls, which they're pretty much just a copy of our first floor walls, but we want to make sure that whoever's going to be building them are not going to build them in the wrong place. So let's go from here, dimension this, select this line, DCO for dimension continue, and dimension over here. And we can move this 3.5 inches somewhere on this side. Same goes for the other portion. Let's press DLI. In this case, we haven't yet given a thickness to this portion of the wall. So let's go ahead and do this now. Put it somewhere here. Move it out of the way. DCO for dimension continue. Let's go to this line. And let's go to these lines. As well as these lines. Now that we're all set, since you can already see we have an overlap, let's put it on the other side so that we don't have this overlap. Here again, let's move these dimensions a little bit further. And here we have 1 inch dimension. And we want to probably put it somewhere where it's going to be clear to someone where it is. So let's move it out of the way completely. Let's move this on this side. This one is in the right location and it works just fine. Again, this length is arbitrary, but it obviously has to go further than your last riser, which we have removed 2. So make sure you have the exact number of risers as I have. We copied them from the first floor to the foundation plan, and we removed the bottom 2 ones. This is as far as this should go. Let's continue placing the rest of the elements on this plan. First, let's start with the smoke detectors. Let's go to the model space, to our blocks, smoke detectors, copy, or you can just Control-C, Control-V, put it somewhere outside of the floor plan, over here somewhere. Select it again and change the layer to the 0 foundations, fans, and SD. Now go here and move it according to the floor plan PDF. 1 at the stairs, 1 in the middle. We're also going to put the blocks for gas meter and electrical panel. Let's just copy both of them. They should be in the right layer already, so let's copy them somewhere where it will be easy for us to see it. That's here for now. Go to the foundation plan and put it in the location per PDF. Move the note to the inside a bit more. For the gas meter, since the electrical panel will be on the inside, you can move the note on the inside, but since the gas meter will be on the outside, let's move the gas meter towards the outside portion of the wall. Now let's add things like our sump pump, water heater, furnace, and floor drain. All of them are already created for you. You can go ahead and actually copy all of them right here. CO. They should be under the 0 foundation cabinet layer, which I know it's not cabinets, but instead of us creating a whole nother layer, let's keep it this way. Now we have copied them here, foundation plan, and let's place them according to the PDF. Again, it doesn't have to be the exact position, but let's just put it somewhere where it would make sense. Furnace here, water heater not far away from it, floor drain next to the water heater in case it leaks, and a sump pump. In this case, there are more details to it, but let's put it in the corner right here. Now that we have placed these elements, let's create a footing for our foundation. As you may know, the concrete walls require to have in most cases footings that will keep them stable. It will go far deep enough in the ground below the frost line. If you don't know what frost line is, I encourage you to look it up. The way we want to draw the footings would be 4 inches offset from our concrete walls only on both sides of the walls. So let's first put it in the right layer. Select the 0 foundation footing. Once you select it, it already should include the line type by layer. If it doesn't, you can always select the line type hidden. That would be the same thing. So press offset, specify 4 inches. Now let's go around the perimeter and do this in all directions. That's one way of doing this. If you really wanted, you would have created polyline out of all of these walls and pressed offset once, and then you would have created all of these lines at once without having to trim them. But since quite a few of you are still utilizing line work, it will be easier for us to do it this way. The other thing we need to keep in mind is when we press offset, it essentially creates a copy of the line that we're offsetting. So even though we change the layer to our 0 foundation footing, since we pressed offset, it essentially copied our zero foundation walls layer line and put it in the same layer. So we need to go around first. Let's trim all the corners of our newly created layers. First, let's go around and trim and or fillet the corners of our newly created lines, and then we can fix the layer type to which they are assigned. Again, if you press spacebar often enough, that should make your life very easy, and you shouldn't spend too much time dreading about how many lines you have to create or trim. Now that I have trimmed all the lines, everything is clean, I can select multiple lines at the same time or do it slowly just to make sure it works. I want to change them to 0 foundation footing, as you can see here, and now they're changing. Another way you can go about this, instead of manually selecting the layer, you can create a command, or you can use a command that's already created called MA, match properties, selecting the line that you want any other line to be like, and then press on the lines that you want to change. In this case, you want to change all the 4-inch offset lines that we have just now created. We do not need to dimension them since they are hidden beneath the ground, and we really don't care right now for their exact location. Now that you have changed all of these lines, this is pretty much the outline of the footing that you're going to see for your building. This plan will be the only one that we're going to show structure in, since it's pretty empty and we want to try to fill it up with a bit more information. Typically, you would show structure on every floor plan, first and second as well. However, for now, we're going to just stick to the foundation plan structure. Make sure you have these layers existing: foundation structure, structure hidden, foundation structure joists, and so on. Go to the model space, and under the nodes you will see dash line with letters D8 W8 by 18. Go ahead and copy them. They are already in the right layer. I typically use Control C, go to the foundation plan, and locate them here. Now, the location of these lines is 7 feet away from this line, which is how I indicated, and 15 feet 2 inches away from this line and this location. So what I do, I literally put the line on top of this line, make sure I remove the line that was there before, and extend this to slightly go into, make sure everything is aligned, into roughly less than the middle of the foundation wall. And here it's going to stop right here. Move the note, W8 by 18, remove this line. Copy the same line and put it in the middle of this location. Remove this green line and this line, and this one is going to extend again almost to the middle of the foundation wall on one side and on the other side. Make sure that everything is aligned as much as possible. Since this is a very long line, we can always try to put 2 annotations on both sides so that people don't get confused which line it could be. And let's go ahead and dimension these lines. Make sure you are in the right layer. 0 foundation dimensions. DLI, how I like doing this. And we select this line. Well, let's move this one. That's according to the PDF. 15 foot 2, and this one 7 feet. Nothing more is needed for them. Now, what they will guide, what W8 by 18 means is the steel. It is a steel beam. Both of them are of the same size, and they will be spaced out. It's not a continuous beam. Some of them, the one that is shorter is going to be a solid one, but the one that is longer will consist of several beams. And we're going to put columns in the middle of this larger or longer beam so that we can break it up. And what they will do, they will support the joists that will be supporting the first floor, which we will draw next. Let's go to the model space, copy these, but make sure first we can change them to the layer we want, which would be the 0 foundation structure joists. Let's go ahead and copy them now. Foundation plan right here. Also, this is not the orientation of joist that we're going to have. Essentially, what these two arrows indicate is that a joist is going to span from the left to the right side, which it doesn't make sense because they have to sit on top of the W8 by 18 beam as well as the foundation wall. So we'll have to reorient them to be in the following direction. Likewise, we're going to adjust the node and have it say not 16 inches on center, but 19.2 inches on center. If you want to learn more about what that 19.2 means, feel free to do this at your convenience. On one hand, we're going to keep an arrow right at the edge of our foundation wall. On the other side, we're going to extend this all the way up to here, to the beam. We're going to, and what that will indicate is this: all of the joists from this side of the foundation wall to this side will be of this type, 2x10s, at 19.2 inches on center, spaced out. And we don't need to draw anything else. We don't need to draw an individual joist. We can just indicate everything with this simple block. Now let's go ahead and copy this block over here between our beams, since this space will be empty unless we make this node. And let's try to drag this from both directions to be in between our beams. If I drag it only from one direction, and I'll show it to you, at some point the arrow will disappear, which is not what I want. There's an issue with the block itself. So let's drag it from both directions up until we are satisfied with the length of our block, which should be right here. That is a very good way to put the block in. Now our dimension or our annotation is much larger than our block. So let's go ahead and rotate our annotation. That is not a good rotation. Rotate it 90 degrees. And we can simply put it right here, whilst drawing a line here and another line over here. Now let's make sure that these lines are going to indicate that it belongs to this portion. Essentially what we're doing, we're creating an extension line manually for that joist. Hopefully this makes sense. Now again, we're going to copy the same block because we're going to have joists going from this beam to the edge of the foundation wall on this side. And thankfully, it's almost as long. Finally, these joists right here in the middle, they're only going to stop at this point, because at this point, they're changing their length from being from this beam to the foundation wall. So we're again going to copy this block and set it somewhere right here. We accidentally copied this node. Let's move it away. Let's move this node up, and let's move this arrow to be on this side right here. Let's make sure that our block is not going to interfere with anything else. Let's keep it right here. Now what we've done, we essentially created a block indicating that we have joists going from this side to this side. They're resting on this foundation wall and this beam. We have joists going from this side to this portion, resting on this beam and a portion of this wall. And we have joists that are running from this beam to this foundation wall and from this beam to this foundation wall along its course. The reason why we're not putting any joists in this area because this is the foundation plan and our garage is not supporting a first floor. Our garage is our first floor. And you'll see this once we start adding annotation to this plan, which we will do next. Go to the model space and you have these two nodes already created for you. Go to the foundation plan, Control C, Control V, and there's an issue because they are not in the right layer. So let's go ahead and go back to the model space and change the layer to be in 0 foundation nodes so that everything's going to be consistent and we are going to see them in the foundation plan right here. Now basement is clear. We're going to keep this node somewhere around here. And the unexcavated is going to be where our concrete garage slab will be at. Now, one of the last things we're going to do in this plan would be, we're going to copy these two nodes from our blocks, Control C, make sure that they are in the right layer. Put them initially into the foundation nodes, copy them now, foundation plan, and there you go. Essentially, let's position them somewhere where they're not going to be in a way. Still a little bit not connecting. Essentially, the 16 by 8 is your footing, so they want to literally touch this footing line, and the 8-inch concrete foundation wall needs to be touching this line. One node for now will be sufficient. Typically there are more nodes, but for our purposes that should be just fine. Let's also put in a column, or rather a few columns into the space so that we can have one of our beams, the longer one, and not be so long, because the longer it is, the larger size it would need to be. So let's change it to be one column could be right here, right underneath our beam, which we could actually pull our beam down to the center, and another one would be right above it. This is our column, and the green lines indicate the footing for our columns. Essentially what it does is this creates two beams that are W8 by 18, one on this side and one on this side of the column. Now the very last thing that we will do on the foundation plan would be to add a hatch for our concrete walls. Typically there are more nodes and more things going into the foundation plan, but this is the basics. There's more annotations, a bit more dimensions, but for now this should suffice. So let's go ahead and add the hatch. Let's first hide the elements that would be in our way, such as structure, joist, plumbing if we have it on, anything other than the foundation walls. Let's first change our layer to be the foundation hatch layer, and let's keep it on, and let's hide everything else. Now we have very clean exterior walls. Let's press H, make sure our floor plan is visible, and hopefully all of our corners are in good shape. There you go. And make sure that we're going to change this specific hatch to a different one. Let's go to model space. We have two hatches for now, concrete and footing. Let's copy it. But let's first make sure it's the actual hatch is on the appropriate layer. Yes, it is. Let's copy it with the def points that will not be printed. Copy it in the space. And now match properties MA. Select the one you want to be emulated and click here. There you go. Now our entire hatch has been changed. Let's bring up all the layers. And this is essentially what you should have for your foundation plan. Congratulations. Next step in our journey will be to draw elevations.